Hello and welcome to my channel. This is Tracy with Artful Creations by Tracy. Today I am taking part of a hop called Back to the Basics, and you will find the links below to hop along in my description box. Now here are some of the things I decided to use thinking old school, and that is the wooden rubber stamp blocks. These all happen to be Hero Art Stamps, one of my favorite stamping companies that I love and have been using for card making over the many years. Now I'm showing you the Tim Holtz Distressed Markers, which I've had for quite some time. And then the Basil inks. These are little tiny ink spots, as well as the Color Box, Versamark, and some rub-on letters by Scenic Company, and a couple of 8x8 glitter papers, some Daisy D premium Halloween themed pattern paper, and some Recollections cardstock. I went ahead and cut both sheets of paper down to the A2 size card and scored and folded them. Now I'm going to choose a couple of pieces from this pattern paper collection. And when I started looking through this, I had the notion to use some of those paper word cutouts for my cards, but in the end I decided not to use them. And if you can't tell, I have never even used this paper pack. It's still full of everything. My goal is to get patterns that will look well with these two cardstocks and use them for mats on my cards. At this point, I am not even really sure what I'm going to create just yet. And I do measure the best I can, but I do prefer just eyeballing when I do my cards. I know that's not always the best thing, but I consider myself somewhat of a lazy crafter, and I do the best I can with just lining them up and trying to make it work. So now that I have the pattern paper, I am starting to cut them, and I also want to incorporate at least one of those glitter papers, and I use that orange. I never do use that black. So I have pretty much just winged the cutting process here, nothing in particular. And here we go. Now I'm going to start working on my cards. And like I said, I did want to use at least one of those glitter papers, and so I'm going to use that orange one. While I finish cutting up this cardstock, let me know in the comments below what you think of the Back to the Basics card hop so far, if you have landed here first or are last or somewhere in between. I'd love to hear what your opinion is. I'm going to go ahead and use one of those Basil inks and ink up my leaf stamp here and stamp out 3 images onto this white cardstock. I was intending to alternate between the 2 inks. I, of course, misjudged when I grabbed that ink for the 3rd time because none of them are marked. It's really kind of hard to tell. I mean, it does look lighter in the picture now, but at the time, I did not really notice a difference. I'll go ahead and trim this down to fit onto my orange glitter cardstock. And after I make sure that, once again, I just eyeball the measurements, I have to trim a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges. Oh, I see. I decided that it was too wide, so I'm going to use the bigger piece. And here it is where I'm just, again, eyeballing it, adhering it, and then cutting it down to fit the size that I need. I also decided that I was going to use my ATG gun. I've had that for many years. Paper crafting now has really taken in with a lot of more liquid adhesive glues, and I have always used my ATG gun until recently, when I discovered the liquid glues are a lot more durable. But in keeping with the theme, I thought I would just bring out my big old honkin' ATG gun. All right, here I am going to be layering this card up and decide, ooh, I want to add some jute to that because I think that really screams fall even more. And as you can see, I have quite a bit of that jute. I think I need to use it up. So I'm just going to wrap it around a couple of times, make a little knot, and since there is dimension to the back, I will then use foam tape to adhere that to my card. That way it gives it a little more dimension. While I finish up preparing this card, I'll just gonna tell you a quick little story about the day I actually created this card. It was extremely windy outside. I don't even know what the wind gusts were, but we have a chicken coop. We have 12 chickens right now, and we have a tarp on top, and the tarp was just, I thought it was gonna take the entire portion of our coop and just blow away. It was so bad. My son and I had to go out there and kind of rescue the chicken coop topper, I guess, the roof part that my husband and sons built, and we had to take the tarp off, unfortunately, and now they're a little bit exposed, but we will certainly fix that soon. Now, for the inside of the card, because my card base is actually colored cardstock instead of white, I picked up one of my pre-cut pieces of white cardstock, inked the edges, and decided to go ahead and put a sentiment on the inside and put that in, and voila, that is card number 1 complete. I think that turned out really cute. For card number 2, I'm going to put the sentiment on the outside, and I'm showing you a piece of basil cardstock. I really, really love basil cardstock. And one side of the cardstock is textured. So I showed you the texture side, then I flipped it over. The other side is more smooth, and that's the side I'm going to place my sentiment on. That way it gives me a nice, cleaner, crisp image. And of course, ink the edges. Now this is just probably about a 2 1/4 inch block square that I mat, and then this is going to be a very, very easy and basic card. I want to do some more inking here, the edges of the cardstock, so that way the pattern paper will pop a little more. After I adhere that down, I'm going to then take that strip of glitter paper and kind of figure out where the middle is. Again, no real measurements there, just kind of eyeballing it. I looks like I know what I'm doing, right? But here I am just going to tack that down, and then I'll cut off the edges. One thing I like to do when I'm creating cards is use up whatever I'm working with. You know, when I cut a piece of paper and then I have a scrap, I want to try to incorporate that with my cards. To me, no matter if it's back to the basics or not, that's what I try to do. And that was just a little leftover piece from one of the cuts, and I thought, ooh, that is going to look really good right there. Maybe kind of almost look like a wrapped present. So after I get that down, I'm going to once again bring in my foam tape, pop up my sentiment, and now this foam tape is not really huge dimension. We're talking, gosh, maybe an 1/8 of an inch foam tape. I've had it, that roll used to be ginormous, and I probably have had that roll 6 years. It's been a while since I've done a lot of card making, and now that I'm back into it, I've really been using the heck out of it. Here I am inking the edges again, and I think I'm going to bring in that leaf stamp. And I'm just going to stamp a couple of little corners with that leaf, make it look really fallish, adhere that into my card base, and that will make my second card. Hope you're enjoying it so far, and I appreciate everybody who's hopping along and watching, and if you're new to my channel, welcome. I appreciate each and every one of you. I looking forward to getting to 100 subscribers soon, and I might be doing a giveaway. Sneak peek to that. Okay, card 3. I really had to pause for these last 2 cards because I know I chose that pattern paper, but ultimately I was not thrilled with it at all. It just wasn't speaking to me. Not fond of it. Really struggled with this one. I thought, well, let's go see if I have any scrap purple paper, and I did. That is the Cricut brush brand. Well, it's Cricut brand, and it's called brushed paper. So it has like a texture as well as a sheen to it, and it's really very pretty. Now, I wanted to definitely use those pumpkins. I thought they were just adorable. And as you see, I already stamped them out with one of those Basil inks. And I will size down to my glitter mat again. I ended up using just about that entire 8x8 sheet of glitter orange paper. I had very little left over. I'm going to go ahead and color up the pumpkins, but I'm not going to do it all on camera because, once again, as I've told you before, if you've watched some of my videos, I'm not a very fast colorer, and it's not one of my favorite things to do. Just not my cup of tea, but I really do enjoy how it looks. Since I will be showing some of it, I will just talk a little bit about using the wooden rubber stamps. If you have never used them, I can't even tell you that I don't know how we did it back in the day, because you really have to be very precise when you're positioning it. You have to make sure that you don't have a double image when you stamp. If you rock it too much, if you press it and just kind of bumps up a little bit, it's going to create a double image. If the rubber was not mounted on the wood properly, you're going to get a crooked stamp, and that's very frustrating. And if you don't get enough ink on it or pressure, then part of your stamp will not go onto your paper. And try to do a double stamp. Very, very difficult. I really don't know how we used to do it before those clear stamps or the acrylics or even the stamping platforms. Just the wooden stamps really feel archaic now. And I know a lot of people have taken those and unmounted their stamps and used that cling foam, which obviously I have not done yet, but I plan to do so in the future. Something maybe I'll even do a video on. Now, since my coloring is all complete, I'm just going to go ahead and just layer up everything up here. Adhere the paper to the card base. Adhere my cute little pumpkins to their mat. They're actually I double mat this one. I think it really makes it pop, and I didn't use foam tape on this one. But after looking at this, I thought, ooh, I needed to add another element to that, and that would be buttons. I have many, many, many buttons. I can't even communicate to you how many buttons I have. Maybe we should do a contest one day. Let me know how many buttons you think I have. Maybe I can con one of my kids into counting them for me. So I decided, well, not decided, I use my craft dots. These are perfect for putting on the buttons. And, you just kind of lay them there before you press them down. Make sure they're somewhat even. Again, no measurements. I never really measured much. I do when I have to, and then I, of course, bring in my husband to help me if it has to be really precise. He's amazing at that, and I stink terribly at that. All right, so here we go. Card number 3, almost done. Just need to do the inside. I'm going to use another one of my Basil inks. I decided to bring the purple in, as I don't know why I didn't the first time, but that, because they have not been used for so long, that little felt pad was not attached, and I did struggle with it and got my fingers really, really inky. But I don't mind that whatsoever, because I think that's all the fun in crafting. And there you have it, card number 3. All right, fourth and final card. I wanted to do this technique where you divide the pattern paper into thirds. And like I told you before, I am not mathy or good at that. So guess who I asked to help me? That's right, my hubby. Here's what he told me to do. Take your ruler, and as you can see, you put the very edge of the ruler to the left part of your paper. Then you drag down the bottom to the right part of the paper. Now in this case, my paper was, let's see if I have that measurement for you. I wrote it down. So my original measurement for it was 3 3/4 by 5 1/16. So how do you think you could figure out how to divide that into thirds? I have no idea. So basically what he told me to do was what you saw with that ruler, make so that top of the ruler was at the very top, very edge, and then the very bottom, it brought it down to the 6-inch mark. And then he said to just make a tick mark at the 2 and the 4, flip the paper over and do the same thing. And believe it or not, they line up exactly. So I drew the line down so that I can cut them, and they divided perfectly into thirds. I don't know how that works, but it worked. Now, what didn't work so well is me not thinking when I cut this original pattern paper for my mat that it was probably an 1/8 inch all around. I probably should have went in a little bit more because I had a difficult time spacing those 3 pieces of paper on that purple mat, as you will come to see soon. I'm getting way ahead of myself here. And while you're watching that, I will just finish up my little story about our chicken coop. So we converted an old, or not an old shed, but a shed we bought several years ago. This is, I believe, our 6th year having chickens. And one of the doors just keeps blowing open. It doesn't stay shut very well. My son thought, oh, a couple bricks will do the job. And I told him, no, that's not going to do the job because those bricks were already in front of that door and it blew them away. I'm telling you, the wind was horrendous. And so, sure enough, that didn't work. What we really need is a cinder block, but we didn't have a cinder block. We happen to have a couple of old tires hanging around the yard, so he decided to put the tire up against the door, and within 5 minutes, it blew that too. I was hanging on for dear life with this one of the poles that were inside the coop because, oh my goodness, I thought it was going to break my arm holding the door too. The wind, I can't even tell you how bad it was. So he had propped the tire up against the door, and when that didn't work, he decided, well, let's go ahead and lay it flat, and that ended up working. But once we took the tarp off the roof, that really helped keep the rest of the coop safe. The chickens were already scattered by this point, and we were like, gee, I hope this wind doesn't pick one of them up and just carry them away. It was crazy. Okay, back to the basics of let's use some ribbon. And here I am, tacking that down, putting it on the back before I adhere it to my card base. Again, I think that just really brought out all those colors, purple and orange. Does it get any more fall / Halloweenish to you? I don't think so. I ended up thinking, wow, these papers did end up working in the long run because I just wasn't feeling it. Now this stamp I'm going to stamp on the piece of white cardstock that I had laying around, just a scrap, again with that purple ink pad. And I had trouble with this particular stamp because it is crooked. It was, yeah. I may have had to do that again, I think. I can't remember, but I'm trying to glue that felt piece down. Didn't quite work right away. And I really did get very inky with that, because that actually, believe it or not, for having that ink pad for the many years that I have, it's still full of ink. I was quite surprised. I originally was going to use my Zig markers instead of the Tim Holtz ones, because those I've had a lot longer. Well, guess what? They were pretty much all dry. I have to go through the rest of them and probably toss them out. So after I stamped, I believe this a second time to line it up so it looked semi-straight, I'm just going to cut it down, put it on a leftover piece of that brushed cardstock, and tack that down with, I think I used foam. Yeah, I used foam on that as well. That says, "We give thanks for all our blessings." That was a very nice stamp. I like that. I have so many wooden stamps as well. When you've been a card maker for the greater part of 25 years and you really love stamping companies, I couldn't help myself over the years. I just have quite the collection of goodies, and wooden stamps happens to be one of them. So that will be a huge project in the future to unmount all those and put that foam tape, not foam tape, the foam cling on them. But I know in the long run it would be the best thing to do, because I don't know how we did it. Just don't know how we did it with these wooden blocks. All right, so getting to the end here, inking up my edge and adhering it inside my card base, leaving it blank inside. I like to do that for a lot of my cards, just because, you know, a lot of people want to write their own notes, and I think that's perfectly awesome. And here it is, card number 4. So here is my cards. I appreciate you watching and hopping along, as this is my first official hop. I hope you will like and subscribe to my channel. I'm still a newbie here. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought and how I did on Back to the Basics of Card Making. Have a blessed day.